guys, we just went over defining the real number system and also how to classify the real numbers. But let's take a look at some further problems. We're going to determine the classification of all numbers. So let's start with the value, the square root of 10. And if you remember from the earlier lesson, the square root of 10 was labeled as an irrational number. So it obviously has to be an irrational number because it's a non-repeating or non-terminating decimal. Well, let's find out why. So the square root of 10, I don't know what it is without a calculator, so let's use some quick math here. I'm going to say this 0 on my number line. This is my number line, guys. It's got a 0. And let's put the square root of 9 down. Square root of 9 is 3. And let's look at the square root of 16, which is 4. So I know the square root of 10 falls between here somewhere. But I don't know where without a calculator. So let's find out. Since it's not a perfect square, it is going to be an irrational number. But let's find out why without me just telling you. So it's not a perfect square. The square root of 9 takes up the integer 3. The square root of 16 takes up the integer 4. This falls between. It's got to be a decimal, 3 point something, something, something. I don't know which one, but let me pull up a calculator here. We'll find out. So I've got my calculator out here. Let's find out what the square root of 10 actually equals. The square root of 10, it actually equals 3.1622777. There's no repeating decimal. The decimal does not repeat continually here. And also, it does not terminate it. It's continuing on, and it'll probably go off the screen. So therefore, it's just a little extra proof of, hey, this is not a perfect square. It is not a rational number because the decimal is not repeating. It's not terminating. It's going to be irrational. But irrational numbers are also a part of the real number system, so it's also a real number. Let's move on further to a second problem. Second problem says, hey, what's 3 divided by 0? Where does this fall under in the real number system? Well, you know that 3, the denominator cannot be a non-zero value, so therefore it's actually not a real number. It's not a part of the real number system. And a way to prove this is if we wrote 3 over 0 in long division, we could write it out and say, hey, how many times do you have to multiply 0 to make it equal 3? Well, it can't be done. It will never happen. So therefore, it's more proof of why it's not a real number. So you ask yourself, how many times do you have to multiply 0 to get to 3? It can't happen. Therefore, it's not a real number. Up here I wrote not real system. It should be not real number. It's not a part of the number system. Let's look at 2 more real quick. The next one is the square root of 1 over 4. Well, you know the square root of 1 is 1 over the square root of 4 would be, square root of 4 is 2, so to prove this, 1 over 2 times 1 over 2 equals 1 over 4. Let's fix that 4 real quick, and that is the same number as above. So, therefore, the square root of 1 over 4 is the square root of 1 over 4 is 1 over 2. This is also equal to 0.5. 0.5 is a terminating decimal. Therefore, terminating decimals are a part of the rational number system. Rational numbers are a part of the real numbers. Therefore, it is rational and real. Let's look at one last one, and that one is the square root of negative 17. Well, any negative number inside of a square root symbol is not a real number. The reason is, you ask yourself, what number times itself equals a negative number? Well, you know that no number times itself equals a negative number. let's prove this by something easy. The square root of 16, which is a perfect square, equals 4. Well, what's the square root of negative 16? Ask yourself, what number times itself equals negative 16? Well, it could only be negative 4 times negative 4, which equals positive 16, or positive 4 times positive 4, which is also equal to positive 16. So therefore, no number times itself equals a negative number. Therefore, negative 16, just like negative 17, is not a real number. Let's fix that line real quick. It's not a real number. Okay, thank you.